Texas women's basketball gets knocked out in the Elite Eight. Shaka Smart leaves Texas for Marquette, and MLB opening day kicks off tomorrow. All of this and more coming up on College Crossfire.
Yeah, let's do this.
And their men's basketball team need to stop social distancing themselves from fans.
But now it has been overdone to death. Playing, don't stop believing.
Bye-bye, Bucks. Bye-bye, Raptors.
All right, let's get to it. Welcome into College Crossfire, the last one of March. I'm your host, Jaxie Pigeon, and it looks like tonight's show is going to be a great one. Let's start out by introducing tonight's panel. On first base, we have Jake Herman, the reigning champ. How are you?
I'm doing well, Jaxie. I'm back in Austin and looking to go back-to-back here on College Crossfire. Thanks for having me on.
Happy to have you. And on second base for the first time this semester, Celeste Ramirez, how are you?
Hello, I am doing good. I got my second dose today, so I'm feeling fired up.
Oh, she is fired up. All right, Jordan, how can you top that? Third base is Jordan. How are you?
Yeah, doing great. First show of the semester, first show I'm on in this semester, so I'm excited to get to it.
Yes, we've got two for the first time this semester and a reigning champ, and we're ready to go almost. But before we start out, we're going to award some extra points. Jordan, for the best background, you are getting an extra point to start off the show. All right, let's get to it. Just last night, Texas women's basketball had their Elite Eight matchup in the NCAA tournament against South Carolina. Number one, South Carolina was the heavy favorite with only 2.7% of all brackets having Texas make it to the Elite Eight. The Gamecocks, being one of the top programs in the country, proved that to be true in San Antonio last night. Audrey Warren was the only Longhorn in double figures, having 13 points. At the half, South Carolina led by 15. Midway through the third, the Gamecocks led by 13 until Texas went on a 9-0 run to cut the lead to 10. However, a scoreless fourth quarter for Texas ultimately handed the 62-34 win to South Carolina. What was the biggest factor leading to the Longhorns' loss against South Carolina last night? Jake, start us off.
Well, the proof is in the pudding in that the Longhorns' struggles came at the offensive end of the floor. And you have to credit South Carolina and Coach Staley and that whole defensive unit for being able to really put Texas into their own version of the torture chamber last night. Texas just could not get anything going. They couldn't deal with the on-ball pressure and the denials that the South Carolina guards were enforcing out on the wings. And it was just a product of, poor shooting leading to South Carolina just being able to sink in and really employ their defensive system to the best of their ability. That and the fact that Texas wasn't forcing turnovers at the defensive end, so that didn't allow them to get the kind of transition buckets that allowed them to beat Maryland in the Sweet 16.
Sure. It's just kind of like you said, the transition, not great on their end last night, but overall, just kind of this dominant performance by South Carolina that tripped them up in the end. Celeste, what do you think?
I think going into this game, people knew that Texas was not as gifted, for the offensively gifted team. Obviously, a scoreless fourth quarter stands out, but also their defense did fail them in many ways. That's kind of their whole thing, drawing charges, and Texas just was unable to get anything going their way. But I would say that more so it fell on the offense, but defense too for Texas, obviously.
Sure. The offense was obvious by the score, but obviously on the defensive end, they had some crucial turnovers that didn't help their cause. Jordan, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say that sometimes questions on the show require some analysis or research, but for this one, it's pretty easy to determine why they lost. They couldn't score. Yeah, if you look at the box score, South Carolina almost doubled the amount of points that UT put on the board. And if you're watching in the fourth quarter, a savvy viewer might have picked out that they scored precisely 0.0 points in that entire stretch. Now, as Jake said, I think that this says more about South Carolina's defense than it does about UT's offense. And I think that South Carolina's their lockdown defense, their defense was locked down. They were simply the better coached, more well put together team. They're a 1 seed for a reason. But yeah, if you can't score once in an entire quarter, it's pretty easy to figure out why you're going to lose that game.
Sure. And like you said, it's out there for the world to see. I think they actually set a record for the only time to ever have a scoreless quarter in the tournament. But, it was definitely a rough time for the Lady Horns. But, I think the South Carolina also on the same side of that just didn't actually bring their A game, surprisingly. I feel like it could have been much worse of a blowout. But Texas did struggle on both ends, which ultimately led to this huge loss. But further in the tournament than they thought they were going to make it, and anyone else did. So everyone's going to get 3 on this one. Next up, just last week, we discussed whether or not Shaka Smart was on the hot seat after a first-round loss in the tournament to Abilene Christian. Well, I'm not sure how hot the seat was necessarily, but Shaka Smart traded his Texas head coaching gig for a new opportunity in his home state of Wisconsin with Marquette University. In his 6th and final year as head coach at Texas, he finally led to the Longhorns to their first ever Big 12 tournament title. However, it was this year's upset loss to ACU that stuck with Texas fans and led to Shaka Smart's discussion on his future here at Texas. Now that it's official that Smart will lead Marquette Golden Eagles, who should Texas hire to fill the head coaching role for men's basketball? Celeste, start us off.
I'm going to go with the UT grad, Chris Beard from Tech. He's established a really great program at Tech with arguably, not as much talent as, say, this group from this specific year for Texas. I think that he would be a great addition. He has a similar culture to Shaka in the sense that I liked the way Shaka was with the guys, actually cared about how they were on and off the court. And I feel like Beard is that way, but also more disciplined and has higher expectations for what they're supposed to do at, Texas, the basketball school, obviously.
Absolutely. Great option there. Jordan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that the odds-on favorite to win the job at this point is Chris Beard from Tech, and I think he'd be a great pick. But I'm going to throw another name out there and go with Brad Underwood from Illinois. He led that team to a 24-7 record this past season, which earned them a Big Ten championship and a 1 seed in the tournament before they were unceremoniously bounced by Loyola Chicago. Underwood has had experience coaching in the Big 12 in the past, as he did so at Oklahoma State. So he knows the opponents well and he knows the terrain well. And I think that he would just bring a certain amount of grit and toughness that Shaka Smart, for all that he did for Texas, never really brought, I thought. He's a coach on the rise, and I think he'd be a good fit at UT.
Definitely. And I like how you mentioned that, conference experience, because it's important. Like just this year, Texas getting their first ever conference title. I mean, you have to get a little bit of experience on that end to be able to do that. So glad he's had that too. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, I like both of those names that the other panelists have thrown out there. I think they would both be great picks. I'll throw another name into the mix, and that's Eric Musselman, who's right now over at Arkansas. He took them all the way into the Elite Eight during his second year at that program. And I think he'd be a great hire because he'll be able to have a similar degree of success quickly at Texas, just in time for the new Moody Center to open up. And the other reason I pick a guy like Musselman is because with the kind of track record that he has, an extensive head coaching background, and an assistant coaching background at both the NBA and the college level, you can quickly rebuild a team through the transfer portal. And that's what a guy like Eric Musselman that has a ton of experience could be able to do. And that's why he'd be able to land on his feet here at UT and use the resources on this campus to keep UT momentum going and hopefully put that Abilene Christian loss in the rearview mirror.
Let's hope so. Yes, that's definitely a great option there too. I mean, there's a lot of great names out there that could fill this position, but I'm going to have to give it to Jordan on this one. Brad Underwood, I think that he has potential, especially like you said, with his experience in the conference. But Jordan, you're going to get 3, Celeste 2, and Jake 1. Next up, the Gonzaga Bulldogs have been the talk of the town this entire season, but especially during this year's NCAA tournament. With their win last night over USC, the Zags moved to 30-0 on the season and remain the odds-on favorite to cut down the net this year. Under 22-year veteran head coach Mark Few, the Zags have an elite offensive game, setting the D1 record for winning 27 straight games by double digits. Corey Kispert, Jalen Suggs, and Drew Timme are just a few of the names that make up this historic team. If they go all the way, the Zags will become the first undefeated team since the Indiana Hoosiers did it in 1976. So, can anyone stop Gonzaga men's basketball from making history? If so, who? Jordan, what do you think?
Short answer, no. I honestly don't think anyone can. All due respect to UCLA, who are a fun underdog to root for and have way overperformed their 11 seed expectations, but I think that their chances are slim to none in their matchup against Gonzaga. I think that there's just too big of a skill gap between them. And I would love to root for a Texas team such as Houston or Baylor who are still alive, but I don't think that either of those teams can beat Gonzaga either. Baylor has not many weaknesses, and Houston absolutely dominates on the boards, but Gonzaga has been undefeated so far this whole season. And I know I picked otherwise in my bracket, but I'm going to go back on it now. I think that they're a team on a mission to make history, and I think that they very much can be the first team since Indiana in the 70s, like you said, Jaxie, to go undefeated all the way to the championship. I'd love to be wrong just for the sake of my bracket, but right now I can't pick against them.
All right, Jordan is full on Zags. Jake, what about you?
Yeah, there's just nothing to not like about this Gonzaga team right now. The question posed by the show is, can Gonzaga be stopped? Another team that answered an important question earlier on in this tournament are the Baylor Bears, and that was, can they return to the form that they were in before they were racked with COVID cases throughout the season? And that answer is yes. Baylor looks like a team that is going to pose a formidable challenge to Gonzaga should they get past the Houston Cougars. I don't think any of the other teams, UCLA or Houston, are well equipped enough at the guard position to be able to slow down those explosive playmakers, Jackson, that you mentioned. Jalen Suggs at the guard position, Ayayi, Kispert, Timmy. There's just too many weapons. The only team that is deep enough and talented enough to compete with them, I think, is Baylor. And I fully expect a Gonzaga versus Baylor title game to be very close and come down to the wire. Might be a coin flip if those two teams matched up.
All right, a little bit more competitive with the Bears. Celeste, what about you?
I think that Gonzaga can and will be stopped by Baylor. There in my my bracket said that it was going to be Baylor and Texas. Kind of embarrassing. We're going to forget that happened. But I thought that Baylor was going to be victorious in the end. I don't know. I just watching that group is so fun. They have a lot of talent, and they're just like they're super tough. That group, I just feel like they have what it takes to beat Gonzaga, and I just think like I don't know, I don't have a lot of bases for this, but I just genuinely feel it in my heart, and my bracket hasn't really failed too much besides the Texas one, but I had some pretty good picks in there in mine.
All right, well, go off then, Celeste. I mean, talk about bracket success there. Okay, Texas in the finals. All right. Anyways, I really, Gonzaga this year is pretty unbelievable. Like the talent we all mentioned on this team. I mean, the guard position, like Jake mentioned, though, it's kind of incomparable to any other team at this moment. So Jake, you're going to get 3, Celeste 2, Jordan 1. And when we come back, the panel discusses the women's NCAA tournament and MLB opening day. You won't want to miss it.
Men's basketball looks for a key win against Iowa State. Women's basketball is tested against the number 2 team in the nation.
The Longhorns had a dominant pitching performance in the latter half of the game, led by Pete Hansen.
I get to say some of the most exciting words in football. The Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock. And picking for
Texas started the third with the lead and continued to gain momentum on defense.
Hello and welcome into the first social distancing college press box ever.
You're watching a live sports presentation of Texas Student Television.
It's a lovely evening in Austin. Texas Longhorns, Texas A&M Aggies. This is a rivalry game, high intensity, high scoring. Puck drop, we're off. Both of these teams are very fast. Big collision on the wall there. Now a little advantage for Texas. Shot in the middle.
Welcome back to College Crossfire. Let's take a look at the scoreboard. Leading the show, we have Jordan with 8 points, and right behind them, we have Celeste and Jake in a tie with 7 points. Not in 7th place. Wow. All right, let's jump right back in. On the women's side, the competition has been cut down to 4 teams as well. 3 of the 4 who advanced are number 1 seeds, which are UConn, Stanford, and South Carolina. The number 3 Arizona Wildcats clawed their way into the Final Four for the first time in program history. The UConn Huskies will look to take home a 12th NCAA championship title. Stanford Cardinals looking for their 3rd, and the South Carolina Gamecocks seeking their 2nd, with their first one coming a few years back in 2017. That being said, who is your pick to cut down the nets this year in the women's tournament? Jake, start us off.
Yeah, coming into the show, I would have thought I would stick with my Stanford prediction, but I think I'm going to have to switch it to UConn. I really like what I've seen from Paige Becker and that whole UConn offense throughout the tournament. I think they survived a scare. They knocked off Baylor, who was probably the 2nd or 3rd best team left in the field. Yes, there was controversy at the end, but a win like that will build character and build confidence for UConn and Coach Gino Ariema's squad. We've seen throughout the COVID year that coaching has been important, and the most consistent programs across all the major sports have been able to thrive in this setting. And I think that's going to be the case for UConn. Stanford, the problem I see is just the consistency. They didn't come out very well at all in the first half of that game against Louisville. Yes, they came back and blew them out in the second half, but any kind of slip up like that, and UConn is going to be able to take advantage. I'll go with the Huskies to capture another national title.
Yeah, and just like you said, the consistency, like Baylor, they were leading for a while and they just kind of lost it, and UConn took full control of that game, which they can do. So definitely a dangerous threat. Celeste, what do you think?
I think it's due time for another UConn win. I thought before this tournament started it was going to be Baylor-UConn. Like whoever wins that matchup was going to take it all. And like what Jake said, they have a chip on their shoulder right now with the controversy. I don't know if you guys have seen the video of the guy saying like LeBron's never said that the other team should have won because of a foul or something like that. Their coach was saying that. I think that they have a chip on their shoulder. They have something to prove, and they're going to win it all this year.
All right, Celeste, also with UConn. Jordan, what about you?
Yeah, I want to pick another team just to be different from the previous 2 answers, but I don't think I can. I'm going to pick UConn as well. I thought I picked Baylor in my bracket initially, and that game between Baylor and UConn was insane. It was very close. Baylor almost came out on top, but then Paige Beckers, the freshman of the year, she charged up like when Godzilla does his fire breath. I know Godzilla vs. Kong is coming out. That's why it's in my head right now. She got 28 points for the Huskies and led them to victory. And dominant isn't enough of a word to describe their performances in past tournaments. I mean, just look at the 11 titles in their trophy case right now. And I don't think it'll be any different this year. They by far have the most experience of any other team left. And they play Arizona first, who's making their first Final Four appearance this year. I think that Paige Beckers and just the rest of that team is going to deliver another historic performance and give the Huskies their 12th championship, which again is an insane number. 12 championships. I wish I had them.
Yeah. All right. Well, everyone's got UConn on this one, but as far as reasoning, I'm gonna have to go with Jake on this one. I think that once you have, and to Jordan's point here, they're playing Arizona first. It'll give them this kind of boost of confidence that they'll need to project forward, and that they can capitalize on even when they're down, like in that Baylor game, they can still come back. So Jake, you're gonna get the points on that one. No. Next up, Major League Baseball is back. Well, it actually officially begins tomorrow. But anyways, the 2020 MLB season was shortened due to COVID-19. There was still a champion crowned, and that was the Los Angeles Dodgers. With the 2021 season beginning, it's always fun to make bold predictions about how the year will go. The season will already be off to a better start with a full 162-game season as opposed to last season's shortened 60-game campaign. With a new season, there's new buzz regarding who will succeed and who will fail. That being said, what is your way too early MLB World Series matchup prediction? Celeste, start us off.
Okay, so this one is inspired by my father. I texted, who thinks that it's going to be the Dodgers and the Astros. I agree because I think the Dodgers still have the same group that, they deserve to win with last year. The Astros, however, are still trying to redeem themselves from, you guys haven't heard, they cheated. But I think that it's going to be the Astros and the Dodgers.
All right, Astros and Dodgers. Breaking news, they cheated from Celeste. Jordan, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say probably the most likely pick would be the Dodgers versus maybe the Yankees. But I'm going to go with two teams slightly less obvious, and I'm going to say the San Diego Padres and the Chicago White Sox. The Padres have one of the most exciting and charismatic players in the MLB right now with Fernando Tatis Jr. And I think that if he continues the meteoric rise that he's on, he, along with other playmakers like Yu Darvish, Blake Snell, Manny Machado, they could potentially end the Dodgers' reign over the National League. As for the White Sox, they didn't have the greatest start with the injury to Eloy Jimenez, but if the rest of their team can stay healthy, they can play good enough baseball, they can last long enough for him to come back just in time for the playoffs.
All right, I like it. A little bit more far-fetched. Okay. Jake, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and not make such a safe pick. You know, you come into the show, you pick Gonzaga, you pick UConn women's basketball. You know, what's next? You pick the Dodgers to repeat? No, of course not. I'm going to go ahead and pick the San Diego Padres to win the World Series. I love that exciting young core. They added great pitching talent in the form of Yu Darvish this season. And I think this is the year that those young players are going to take the next step. The fans, when they get back into that arena, or into Petco Park, the stadium, I should say, are going to embrace that team. And I think the San Diego Padres will upset the Dodgers on their way to the World Series, where they will defeat the New York Yankees. Yes, this is the year that the Pinstripes will finally capture the AL pennant. I love what they did in the offseason. They added Corey Kluber, Jamison Tyone to really shore up their pitching rotation. They kept their bullpen strong. They kept DJ LeMahieu on their squad. And if they can stay healthy, they can make it to the AL pennant. Consider yourselves jinxed, Yankees fans. Padres over Yankees.
Padres over Yankees. All right, we got two Padres now, but I'm going to have to go with Jordan on this one. I think Padres White Sox might be the lucky prediction this year. All righty, next up. Last Thursday marked the end of the official trade deadline of the NBA. By that 2 p.m. deadline, all trades were completed and submitted to the league office. Even with less than 24 hours remaining before the deadline, teams were still looking to perfect their rosters. Teams were also able to trade away players for future draft picks during this time. Nikola Vucevic, Victor Oladipo, and Aaron Gordon have all found new homes. Not as much excitement as usual, but which team got the greatest benefit out of this year's NBA trade deadline? Go ahead, Jordan.
Oh, me? Okay. I'm going to go with the Miami Heat, who have been a little bit lackluster this season after their great season last year where they went to the finals. But one addition that could really help them is Victor Oladipo from the Rockets. Oladipo is a great player. He's been injury-ridden these past couple seasons, but it finally seems like he's healthy again. And when he's healthy, he can play at an all-star level. And better yet, the Heat gave up next to nothing in that trade. They had to sacrifice Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, and a couple picks. And if you say, who are Avery Bradley and Kelly Olynyk, I don't blame you. I barely know them either. Miami's not exactly the top contender in the East right now. They're a bit further down in the rankings. But Oladipo's addition to the roster could give them the much-needed jolt they need to make a big push right before playoff time.
Yeah, Miami made a run this past year, and Oladipo would be a great addition to that team, helping them get a little bit further. Jake, what do you think?
Jaxie, I love what the Chicago Bulls did at this year's trade deadline. They added an all-star onto their roster in Nikola Vucevic. And not only that, they added another great big man to the team. They took the starter right off of the Boston Celtics, traded away basically nothing to get him. Daniel Tice is going to be a great addition to that Chicago Bulls roster, who all of a sudden provide a nice little challenge for Lauri Markkanen, their first-round draft pick from a few years ago, who has kind of been up and down over the first few years of his career. Hopefully he improves with the addition of that type of all-star competition onto the roster. So with Zach LaVine on the team and now with Nikola Vucevic, you got a young piece in Kobe White who's maturing into a nice player. I think the Chicago Bulls are not ready to compete just yet, but they're going to be a tough out this season, and they're going to get their young players some really valuable postseason experience, and they could be really good in a couple of years.
Definitely. It'll be a little bit over time, but Vucevic will definitely boost that roster a lot more than some people may think. Celeste, what do you think?
I'm going to go with the Nuggets, a Gary for a Gary, and they got Aaron Gordon. I think that the Nuggets were already a pretty solid group before. They were able to upset some people last year. I think that they're going to do it again this year. I just think Aaron Gordon's a really excellent addition to that team. They have the talent. I just really feel like they're the ones who benefited the most from this trade deadline.
I definitely agree with that statement. I think that Aaron Gordon, especially with his leadership and what he'll bring to that Nuggets team, will help them be a little bit more successful, hopefully, than they have been this past year. But coming up next, it's rapid fire here on College Crossfire. You won't want to miss it.
Sports Show,
the premier sports talk show on the 40 acres. We're back.
Welcome back to College Crossfire. It's time for rapid fire. In this round, points are worth double, and that means it's still anybody's game. Before we jump back in, let's take a look at the scoreboard. In first place, we still have Jordan with 9 points, and right behind them with her points from last question on the last block, Celeste and Jake are tied at 8. All righty, let's get to it. Texas men's swimming and diving coaching icon Eddie Reese announced his retirement after 43 seasons with the Longhorns. In fact, he was the last coach at UT hired by Darrell Royal in 1979, which he loves to brag about. Regardless, he closes out his career with 15 national titles, 12 national runner-up finishes, and 42 straight conference titles. As an 8-time NCAA Coach of the Year, Reese will take on the emeritus role after this year's Olympics in the summer. After such an incredible coaching career at Texas, how would you celebrate your 15th national championship win and retirement? Anybody can jump in.
I think that he should cannonball into the pool.
All righty. Cannonballing.
15-meter high dive with Bevo.
Okay.
Oh, wow. With Bevo.
Bevo, of course, fully equipped with floaties.
Yes, I was going to say, we need some protection on this man.
I think that I would just go with, seeing as they're the swimming and diving team, good old-fashioned pool party. Back when we were younger, that's how you celebrate. You get some pizza, some chips or whatever, get some sandwiches. When you come out of the water right after you're swimming around in that chlorinated water, and then you just get a Capri Sun or whatever, it feels so good. I think that would honestly feel better than 15th championship right now. I'm not going to lie to you. Good old-fashioned pool party.
Honestly, I like the vibes. I feel like it's just kind of a nice gathering for everyone. Chill vibes, but big accomplishments kind of thing. All right, Jordan, you're going to get the points on this one.
Yeah, it's all fun and games till Bevo splashes him with the cannonball.
I get scared a little bit with Bevo. I don't know how he would quite make it up and then back. It's all a huge process. But if you could get it to work out, let me know and I'll be there.
Great.
Great. All right, next up, this past weekend and just last night, Texas baseball took on longtime rivals. In a 3-game series against the Sooners in Austin, Texas grabbed the first 2 wins and dropped their last, but took the series dub. In College Station last night, the Longhorns dropped their matchup 2-0 to the A&M Aggies. On a more exciting note, however, Smokey the Cannon fired right through a Boomer Sooner shirt to kick off the series finale game on Sunday. So, what do you think is the best way to start off a game against a rival opponent?
I think that Bevo should poop. We have to just give him a bunch of fiber, and then we can put a rival something on the ground, sacrificial, obviously, and then he poops on it.
Wait, Celeste, that actually exists. They have the bucket,
the
logo.
That's so disappointing.
Whatever the team is that he goes into. So, it was smart because it actually happens. So,
yep.
It's okay. Clever.
I think that you should get all of the members. I'm going to say this is for a football game just because there's more members on the team. All the members of the football team out onto the field and just stare right down the sideline. Just line up on right next to the opponent's sideline and do a very threatening, interpretive dance. Just banging and ha 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 ha, and don't actually hit them because then that might be there might be a penalty for that or something. But I think that if you can get into their minds before the game, that's the best way to intimidate a rival.
All right, a little bit manipulative. Do it intelligently, an intelligent mess up. Okay, Jake.
How about a good old-fashioned pep talk from the Minister of Culture? I want McConaughey on site philosophizing about why Texas is better than their rivals in every single way before the game. Nothing says intimidating like the soothing voice of Matthew McConaughey. Slick.
The soothing voice of Matthew McConaughey. I feel like he'd just get up there and be like, all right, so let me tell you about this rivalry. Yeah, whatever. I think I just think that this kind of vibe from McConaughey would be great. Not only as people be distracting in terms of fangirl vibes. So Jake, you're gonna get the points on this one. All right, final question of the night. When the Lady Longhorns took on the Maryland Terps in the Sweet 16, there was a celebrity viewing and maybe potentially had money on Texas winning. The man, the myth, the legend, Drake, posted on his Instagram story, quote, "Vegas run me up my upset money. Incredible game," end quote. The Drake curse, I guess, kind of still lives on after the Horns dropped to South Carolina in the Elite Eight, but at least he got them through the Sweet 16. That being said, which celebrity would you want to have betting on you and watching you in your NCAA tournament game?
I'm just going to throw out, I was going to say Matthew McConaughey, but he was in the previous question, and I feel like that would be a little bit too similar of a response. So I'm going to go with the Irishman himself, Conor McGregor, just because he'd bring that luck of the Irish to my team. It'd be the opposite of the curse, for one. But I'm just going to rant about the Drake curse real quick because my Baltimore Ravens right here, Lamar Jackson, in their historic MVP season, Drake was wearing a Ravens jersey or Ravens sweatshirt or something before their playoff game, and he cursed us. They can't tell me any different that the Ravens just played bad and the Titans played well. I think that was Drake's fault. I think, Drake, you should stop focusing on cursing teams and just drop the album already, man.
Focus on the real importance here. No more cursing.
I'm going to go with a bit of a fictional celebrity, one that was played by Tom Cruise in one of my favorite sports movies ever, and that's the fictional agent of Jerry Maguire. Having him watch my game courtside on the sideline, wherever he is, we'll have him screaming, "Show me the money!" And that's what will happen if he bets on the game and wins.
Like Drake saying, "Run me my upset money, Vegas." All right, Celeste, what say you?
I'm going to say somebody that you guys aren't going to expect because the other one you would expect. I'm going to say Dave Chappelle. Funny guy, love him. I just feel like Chappelle is a smart man, very comedic. I just feel like if he trusted in me, that would mean the world to me. So that's exactly why I would pick him.
Honestly, Celeste, I see the vibe here. Hopefully we can make that happen for you.
Yeah.
But in terms of reversing the curse, I'm going to have to go with Jordan on this one with the luck of the Irish, more vibes there with Conor McGregor. Although he's not like maybe the nicest person ever, yeah, like Jake said, knocks him out. But he is Irish, and that will be a little bit better on the lucky side, hopefully. So Jordan, you're going to get the points on that one and the win for the first time of the semester. Congratulations, and it's time for FaceTime. Jordan, take it away.
Thank you. Oh, I didn't have anything prepared. So I would just like to thank my family who are maybe watching this, maybe not. Same with my friends, maybe watching this, maybe not. I'm going to shout out the San Antonio Spurs, who are playing right now against the Kings. I hope that they won, but because it's the Kings, I mean, they got to win. But and I like to shout out Clark as well, who, I mean, he's the MVP. He really makes this show and this whole thing tick. I mean, not only him, because there's a lot of people, but Clark, good job today.
Yes, shout out Clark. And also shout out John for pulling this together. We appreciate you. Thank you guys for coming on this episode. And thank you for tuning in to tonight's episode of College Crossfire. Don't forget to follow us on social media at TSTV Sports on Twitter and Instagram. Lastly, be sure to wake up with a 1-0 Sports Show every Friday morning at 10 a.m. From all of the panelists in our virtual studio and our virtual master control, I'm Jaxie Pigeon. Have a wonderful evening.